We will discuss tonight. First, I would like to wish everyone Rosh Chodesh Tov U'Mvorach. Tonight is Rosh Chodesh Iyar, after a month of Nisan, which from the beginning till the end was a joyous month. Halachically also because we don't say Tachanun, the supplications, in the whole month, which is unusual for the rest of the months of the Jewish calendar. At the same time, full of beautiful days such as Pesach and Chol HaMoed and many events that and also we are now in that time of the Sfirat HaOmer, counting the Omer, which is a very important time for the Jewish people between Pesach and Shavuot, counting each day, showing that we are anxious in total anticipation of the receival of the Torah. So you see, traditionally, it's a very important thing because you get even Jews who do not know why they are counting to count. If they ask themselves, why do we count? We tell them, you count something that is precious. When it is precious, you count it. Diamonds you count because they are precious. So since the Jewish people, after they left Egypt, were in great anticipation for the day when they will stand before the mountain of Sinai and receive the Torah, so they counted the days. That's the primary reason why we count the Omer. These days, especially after the days when we lost our temple, well, that's when the Omer itself was not anymore brought to the Bet HaMikdash, and therefore all we have left is the mitzvah of counting. You know, counting days is very important, because when you count something, it makes everything that you count precious. By counting the days, you are demonstrating the fact that we value each and every day. And that's how Jewish people should be, counting days and evaluating them to their maximum value and preciousness. That will make life much more interesting, not just a routine, something that you regard as something that have to pass and then bye-bye. No, we make our days, each one of them, count. So therefore, the Torah tells us to count those days between Pesach and Shavuot to give us an idea, an insight into exploring the value of each and every day of our life. You see, God has invested in our creation so much intelligence, so many spiritual potentials, that it's impossible to just live like nobody is there and just go on with the days until it's finished. And then one has to understand that the days are so important that you could make them count for you and the rest of the people of Israel and even the rest of the world. In fact, because that's why we have holidays, that's why we have Shabbat. Shabbat makes us count from 1 to 7. The seventh day is Shabbat. There is a certain, just by the way, there is a certain text in the Talmud of Masechet Shabbat where a certain question is being debated, which is, what happens if you go to the wilderness? You are alone in the wilderness and you lost track of time and you don't know anymore when is Shabbat. What do? You don't want to transgress the Shabbat, not even unknowingly. Because if you are in a place in which you don't know which day is it, eventually you are going to go through Shabbat and do many things. And wherever you turn, there is a possibility to transgress Shabbat. You hold something that is forbidden to hold on Shabbat, it's already a transgression, which we call muktzeh. And so forth and so forth. So what do you do in case you have lost track of time and you don't know when is Shabbat? So the Talmud tells us, after a certain debate between the sages, that the halakha is that you should count from that day. You count 7 days. In other words, 6 days, and the 7th will be Shabbat. Regardless of the fact that it will not be Shabbat, but for you it will be Shabbat. That's a tremendous halakhic philosophy. That's what I would call a halakhic philosophy. Because Shabbat itself is a concept. Of course, it has to do with the days. But as long as we know when is Shabbat, there is absolutely no other alternative. But in case you have no alternative but to decide which day is it, start counting from the day when you lost your mind and you recovered it and you don't know when is Shabbat. And no one is there to tell you. And no calendar is there to tell you. So you see that our sages did, in an extraordinary issue such as this one, did demonstrate to us the value of counting the days. The same thing also we find in the book of Tehillim, the Psalms, that im bigvurot shemonim shana, yemei chayenu 70 shana, ve'im bigvurot shemonim shana ve'rohbam amal va'aven. The lifespan of a human being consists of 70 years or even 80 or even more. So one has to learn how to count his years. Every year should count. How many of us understand this concept that we should evaluate each and every day? But Judaism is not satisfied only with counting the days. Judaism wants us to value also the hours, the minutes, even the seconds. Every minute of our life counts, and one can change the world in 1 minute. So that's one of the messages of these days when we count the Omer. There's much more to say about this, but that's not the lecture I want to convey tonight. When the Jewish people received the Torah at the mountain of Sinai on the day of Shavuot, they received the Torah. And Moses brought down the 5 books consisting of 613 commandments. Not only the tablets which had 10 commandments, the 10 commandments are in fact 10 foundations, but the whole Torah consists of 613 mitzvot, which we call in Hebrew Taryag mitzvot. Those mitzvot, you could divide them in certain categories, several categories. There's a category of commandments that are positive, and there are negatives. The positive count 248. The negative count 365. That's right. Together you have 613. So we have positive commandments. For example, when it says kabed et avicha ve'et imecha, respect your parents, that's a positive commandment. When it says lo tirtzach, do not kill, that's a negative commandment. You understand that? But that's not enough, because in those commandments themselves there are several other categories. The categories of the logical precepts, the logical mitzvot, and the illogical ones. There are many mitzvot that are logical, like the one we just quoted before. Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha, respect your parents, is a very logical commandment. I mean, those who gave you life and brought you to the world, you owe them great respect, no question about it. That's a logical precept. Lo tignov, a negative precept which is do not steal, very logical, Everyone will agree that the laws of societies require that one should respect the ownership of others and the properties of others. Agree? So we have a category of mitzvot that are logical. But we also have that category among the mitzvot that we counted, the 613, that offer no logic. I can give you several examples. And yet we have to do them in a very strict way. Like for example, the Torah says do not eat pork. Do not eat pork. And the Torah does not offer any explanation. What's so bad about the pork, the poor little creature? Chazir. Why do we call it chazir, by the way? I can give you two reasons. Chazir, everybody knows what is chazir, right? A pig. Why do we call it in Hebrew chazir? Chazir comes from the verb lachzor, to come back. That's right, Yosef? Meir. Chazir. So our sages said in the Talmud, why do we call it chazir? Because in the future, it'll come back to us. By the way, people think that it means now it's not kosher, but one day it will be kosher. That would be wrong to think this way, because the Torah will never change. And one of the laws of the Torah is that one should not eat pig. But the Torah did not tell me why. The chazir lo tochal. You cannot eat. Why? Okay, you might just tell me it's because maybe it's sick. It's not true. The whole world, it's pig and they are strong like bullies. Okay, there is a certain disease that is related to the chazir, trichonesis. But that's an issue that is so far-fetched today. Does that mean that we have to run it out? Since it does not exist, do we have to consider the pig as kosher? No. It's not kosher. So what is the meaning of chazir? It will come back to be, in other words, it will be again kosher. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Rabbeinu Chaim ben Attar, explains in his commentaries that the truth is that the Torah will never change. The chazir will always be not kosher. But we will discover a different kind of chazir that has the required facets of kashrut. You know, what is required from the animal to become kosher is the fact that it has two requirements. Chewing the cud. It has to be capable of chewing like the cow. It eats, it regurgitates, and then it chews again, brings it up again. You know that? That's the sign of kashrut. But it requires another sign. It has to have a split hoof in the leg. If an animal has those two requirements, chewing the cud and the split hoof, it's kosher. The chazir has a split hoof, but it does not chew the cud. Yes or no? Of course. So that's the reason why the chazir, he raises always his hoofs and he says, I am kosher. But it's not enough, because you have to have the other sign. So the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says that in the future time they will discover a certain type of pig that has both kashrut requirements, and then it will be kosher. Today, even if we find such an chazir, which they did some time ago, we are not allowed to eat it. Because in order to change something that in the eyes of people apparently may look like if you go against the Torah, chazir, you make it kosher, it's so much against all thousands of years of understanding that the chazir, the Jew does not eat chazir, so it will be such a shock that we forbid it until we have a Beit Din of the Mashiach, which is the greatest Beit Din. When you have a rabbinical court that has 120 great luminaries that will be superior to the ancient Beit Din, then we'll be able to decide that such a thing would happen, that a pig can be eaten, provided you find in him the two requirements of kashrut. But so far, right now, the mitzvah of not eating chazir, that's a negative commandment, it is part of the 613 mitzvot, in that category that we call negative. But don't call it logical, since we don't know why the Torah forbade chazir. You follow me? Why? Don't tell me because it's not healthy. Neither here nor there. We don't know. That's a mystery. So our sages call it, so the Torah calls it chazir, there's a second reason why it's called chazir. Remember, chazir from the verb lachzor. So first we said because it will return, as though it will be kosher again. But there is a second reason why the Torah calls it chazir. There's something very special about this very, very charming creature, the chazir. You know, let's say you see a cow. The cow is now eating. And let's say you call it or you holler at it. Hey! The cow will turn its head to you like this. And that's all. You see, only the neck turns to you. But the body remains at the same position. The same thing with every animal. The dog, for example. You call the dog will turn, will go like this. Unless if he decides to reverse its direction and to come to you. But if he stays on the same place, all he will do is turn his neck. But the chazir has something unusual. Make a noise of anything that he hears, he will turn not only his neck, the whole body will return. If you don't believe me, all you have to do, go to a place where there is a chazir and experiment. He will see. If he has to turn his neck, he will not turn only his neck. The whole body will turn to you. I saw it, by the way. And that's the reason why we call it chazir. Because it has the nature, when it returns, it does not turn back only the head, the whole thing turns. That's the scientific reason why it's called chazir. But now we come back again to the question. Why is it not kosher? I mean, it's edible. It's tasty. I'm sure. I never tasted chazir, Baruch Hashem. But I know that from the testimony of people that it's very delicious. I know that the French people go crazy on le jambon. It's all hanging. So we don't know why. So that's called a mitzvah. That's one. There are many mitzvot like this that offer no logic. So that's one mitzvah that has no logic, that has no reason. So we have the categories of logical mitzvot and the category of mitzvot that have no logic. Like, for example, the famous case of para aduma, the red cow. Remember, when God says, if you take a red cow, you burn it all, and then you spray the people of Israel with the ashes to remove the contamination of the dead. All this, do we know what it means? Absolutely nothing. Not even King Solomon, who knew the secrets of everything, when he came to the red cow, he says, it's beyond me. Amarti echkama vehi rechoka mimeni. I thought I am wise, but I see that I still have plenty to know. So you see, that's one mitzvah that has no logic. But tonight we are going to discuss a mitzvah, one single mitzvah of the 613 mitzvot that is very bizarre. And yet it's the most logical mitzvah. I repeat, one mitzvah of the Torah that everyone will agree it is the most logical, and yet you don't know how to do it. It has absolutely no indication how to do it. The Torah says in the book of Devarim, in Deuteronomy, chapter 6, there it says one commandment that says, "Ve'asita hayashar ve'hatov lifnei Hashem Elokecha." למען ייטב לך, וכו' וכו', etc., etc. It says, ועשית הישר והטוב. You shall do what is right and what is good. Logical? Of course logical. Everyone will agree you have to do what is straight and what is good. Apparently everyone now looking at me says, what's wrong with that? It's logical. What else do you want? I mean, what is it that we want from the Torah? The Torah tells you be good. Be good is very logical. But I have a question vis-a-vis this. Somebody has to go and tell them. It's impossible. So, I want to explain my position in this. The Torah says, "Ve'asita," you have to do what is straight and good. Let me first explain to you what the Torah means. The Torah means that you have to always make up your mind to know that something that you do straight is sometimes not enough. It has to be also good. The Talmud explains that it has to be Tov LaShamayim VeLaBiryot. It has to be good in the eyes of God, but it has to be also good in the eyes of people. So far it's very logical or not? Very logical. But if it is, sometimes people will say, well, that is straight, that's right, but it's not good. Or sometimes it's good, but it's not right. It happens every day that you might decide to do something that is justice, but it's not good. Why? Let's say you have to punish someone, but in the meantime his family will be punished also. That's a big problem. When it comes to courts, we have no choice. That's the law of the world. When somebody kills or somebody commits a crime, you have to take him to prison regardless of the fact that his family is going to suffer. That's called Yashar, but not Tov. It's right, but it's not good. What is required from every Jew when he behaves towards his fellow man, not when it comes to punish a criminal, that we have no choice. Only God knows how to punish without hurting anybody else. You understand that the justice in the world is right, but it's not good. Why? I'm not complaining, by the way, because there is no other way. What can we do? But when it comes to relationship between people, one is under the obligation to always strive to do what is right and also good. You cannot do something that is right for this when it is bad for this, or when it is good for him but it's not right for this man. Let's say you offer your chair to an old man. Very good. It is right and it is good. Right? But the problem is, what about if you are also old? Then what have we done here? You get up for somebody who is as old as you. That could be good, but it's not right. You understand? It's not. Let me explain exactly the real complexity here. The difficulty here is, why is it that the Torah is asking me to do something that is vague? And I will explain myself, and that's the lecture. The Torah usually tells me what to do. we have 613 mitzvot, commandments. Some of them are logical, some of them are not logical, but at least I know what to do. In other words, I read the book tells me you have to keep Shabbat, you cannot carry anything in your pocket on Shabbat. It's not logical, but I do it because the Torah tells me not to do it. You understand the point? But if the Torah tells me something that I should do, and I don't know how to do it, because, and here is the point, here is the crux of the matter. How do I know what is right and what is good? Many times we think that we do something that is good, and it's not good. Many times I do something that is right, and it proves to be not right. Let me give you an example from my own life. I remember years ago, it happened in MJO, Meir, in Forest Hills. One of a very good friend of mine, a rich person, a dignitary of the synagogue. In my eyes, he was rough. So he committed a certain thing one day that was unjust, was terrible injustice, in my eyes. So I came to him. I am his rabbi and friend. And I said to him, I'm sorry, what you did is an injustice. He said to me, why, Rabbi? Why do you say it? On the contrary, it is justice. So what did I say to him? I said to him, listen, you have to listen to me, not because I am the rabbi and tell you what to do, but because I was born as a Sagittarius. And since I am a Sagittarius, I was born in December 1st, so therefore, being a Sagittarius, everyone who knows these things about horoscopes knows that the Sagittarius is under the sign of justice. Which means, in fact, my niece, who is an expert in astrology, she told me that, she said to me, Uncle, you know that you are one of 2 million people, that in case you see an injustice, you get sick. Which means your sickness is the sickness of justice. You cannot tolerate injustice. And it is true, by the way. I cannot look at injustice. So I came to the guy and I said to him, I'm telling you, this is injustice. He says, Rabbi, this is justice. I said to him, you cannot tell me what is justice. I am by nature a man of justice. I am a Sagittarius. Like I sang once, I am Sagittarius. So he said to me, Rabbi, I'm sorry. I also was born, I'm also a Sagittarius. And then I got a jolt. I said, wait a minute, then I'm doing here a big mistake. So you could be born under the same sign, and both of you are under the sign of justice. The only problem is that you see justice the way you want to see it. I see justice the way I want to see it. So I'm stuck again with the question, how do I know then what is justice? Verstehst what I am asking? Verstehst das in Yiddish. That doesn't mean I know any Yiddish. That's the only word I know. You understand? Which means, here I thought that this is justice. And when I spoke to him, by the way, the justice was on my side. But that's already because of the Chokhmat Torah, which the Torah came on my side. And I proved it to him that he was committing an injustice. But the way he saw it, since I know he is a man who is a Sagittarius, then he saw it also according to his understanding as justice. So now I understand that even when you do justice, it might not be justice. And justice is for the word hayashar, what is right. So how do I know? How come the Torah tells me to do something that is extremely vague? I don't know what is justice. I'll give you another example that happened to me in Israel. That I will never forget. I was maybe 17 years old. I went on the bus. I had no car. So I went on the bus. The bus was still empty, so there was a chair. I sat down. Little by little, at every station, when you know how the buses in Israel, they stop at every station and people go up. So people went up, little by little it filled up. When we reached close to Machane Yehuda in Jerusalem, so an older guy got up. Not very old, but about 50, 55. In my eyes then it looked old. Immediately, as you know, the good people, that's what they do. I got up because he couldn't find a seat. You know, younger people usually would get up for, isn't this good, right? Would you protest against this? No. So I got up and I said to him, please sir, sit down.
But you couldn't insult him because he thinks he's young.
That's the point. He did sit, by the way. But he gave me such a face, I didn't understand. Is this the thank you that I expect? Instead of saying thank you to me, he gave me a bad face like if I killed him. Alright, I didn't know what to do. I said, okay. Little by little, the bus is getting emptied again. Because people get off the bus. And again, another seat near him became vacant. So I went to sit down again near him. At this time, I couldn't resist the temptation to ask him, what's the matter with you? Why did you give me a face? What happened? I said to him, Ma kara lecha? Lama ma asiti lecha? I told him this is an injustice. The avel. He said to him, Avelu shelcha. The injustice is yours. Because if you think I am old, then I don't think I am old. And you embarrassed me in front of people. Oh my goodness, I kept quiet. I said, oh, then when am I going to know when it's good or when it's bad? Here I did the most generous thing that you could expect from a young man, getting up for somebody who's older than you. Instead, he condemned me because he was embarrassed that I portrayed him in front of people as an older man. There is some logic there, but then what do you do? But the Torah tells me, "Ve'asita hayashar ve'atov." You have to do what is right and what is good. How am I going to know what is right and how am I going to know what is good? Many times I do good, it comes out to be bad. Many times I try to be right, it comes out bad. So that's the question of tonight. How do we figure this issue? Relating to what? I mean, don't think that I just brought this question without a link to something, because you might just say, why did you choose this subject tonight? Don't worry, it has nothing to do with any one of you. But it has to do with the parasha that we read on Shabbat before. We read about the children of Aharon. The children of Aharon, Nadav and Avihu. Those two great giants of the spirit, they were the children of Aharon HaKohen. Being the child of Aharon HaKohen, you are a great man, no question about it. They were the greatest scholars, Torah scholars. The only one who was maybe superior to them was Moshe and Aharon, his brother. But the children of Aharon were known to be the greatest men, and also very religious and very holy. Sanctity was their picture in every way. And here is what happened. The day when the Jewish people inaugurated the Mishkan, the tabernacle, so there was 8 days of festivities. On the 8th day, that was the day of the inauguration. So it was a day to bring sacrifices and things like this. At that day, people were extremely enthusiastic towards the Lord. They were in love with God, with Hashem. Because Hashem displayed His presence before them, by the way. Like it says in the beginning of the parasha last week, you could see it in the book. And see that God, practically they all stood ready near the entrance of the tabernacle, of the Mishkan. Vayera kevod Hashem lifnei Ohel Moed. And suddenly the beautiful aura of the presence of God appeared. And that's something extraordinary that happened in the wilderness. And they saw practically the presence of God in the only way that is possible for a human being to absorb. The look of the Shekhinah, the look of the divine presence. That doesn't mean that this is the face of God. But that's the only impression of God that a human being can absorb. If you understand what I am saying. So, the Jewish people were very enthusiastic at that time. And especially the children of Aaron. They said, we are going to go into the temple and bring and light incense and offer incense להקריב קטורת לפני Hashem, before Hashem. Without asking permission, because they don't have to ask permission. They have the full knowledge, and they are the children of the leader. So they went into that, and they brought what we call vayakrivu esh zara, a foreign fire. Why is it called foreign fire? Because it's a certain service that we were not requested to do. Like the Torah says there, Asher lo tziva otam. God did not require this from them. It is great. Nobody says this is a way how to demonstrate your tremendous loyalty to God. But God did not ask you to do it. They went and did it, thinking that what they are doing is great. And God punished them. Suddenly a fire came into their nostrils and killed them. And that's how Aharon HaKohen, the darling of the Jewish people, the brother of Moses, lost his 2 children in the happiest day at that time of the Jewish people, the day of the inauguration of the Mishkan. You could imagine what Aharon felt. He is the tzaddik, the righteous man of the people of Israel. He loses his 2 children, the natural leaders of the Jewish people, the greatest people that you could ever have as far as spirituality is concerned. At the same time, it happened on the happiest day. Not easy. Another guy would lose his mind. Another guy would scream and would cry. But the Torah testifies that Aharon HaKohen vaydom Aharon. And Aharon kept quiet. He accepted. Alright. Then Moshe came and he said to him, Aharon, don't feel so bad because God, he practically, bikrovai ekadesh. God says, I will sanctify myself through my best, my holiest friends. I'm not now saying that we can understand those things easily, but sometimes God takes the best. In that case, he punished 2 people who meant to do only good. Our sages brought us several reasons why those 2 people died. There are several reasons. One of them is that they drank wine before they enter. And you are not allowed to drink wine if you are going to serve in Bet HaMikdash. You know, a Kohen who usually function in his usual function in Bet HaMikdash is to slaughter and to burn the sacrifices, right? To receive the sacrifices from people. At that time, he must be totally out of any alcohol. If he does, chayav mita, that's already something else. In this case, they wanted, our sages explained, the commentators explained, why did they drink a little of wine? Not to get drunk. They were not drunk. They wanted to enhance their spirit, to enliven their understanding, and to enhance their intelligence, so that they will serve even better God. Now you might ask me, what's the link with the wine? I will tell you an immediate quotation from the Talmud where it says, Hamra pakhin. Wine has the faculty to make you more clever. How am I saying this? Don't we get drunk with wine? Depending how much wine you drink. The Talmud says that the wine has a tremendous effect on people. If you drink a little, 1 cup, it makes you healthier and smarter. That's what the Talmud says. I don't know if the doctor will agree with me, but that's what the Talmud says. But if you drink a lot of wine till you get drunk, then that doesn't work. Then you're drunk. You're an animal. That's all. So the people of the children of Aaron, what did they want to do? They wanted to drink wine so that to elevate their spirit, which fits the position, so that they can serve God in a better way. But that's the understanding of our sages, but God punished them. That's also something we cannot understand. I mean, their intention was good or not? It was very good. All they wanted is to serve the Lord. Only that way, which they thought is the best. Here again we see a failure in understanding that commandment which we mentioned before. Ve'asita hayashar ve'atov. You think you are doing something good and it comes out bad. Another reason that our sages tell us about the death of the children of Aaron is the following. Since they were younger than Moshe and Aaron, and they looked at Moshe and Aaron, they were very old then. Moshe was very old then, and Aaron even older. So a thought came to one of the brothers. So it is going to sound ugly, but that's now how it looks. One of the children of Aaron said to his brother, "Mata yamutu zekenim ele, ve'anachnu nikach et ha'anhaga." When these old people are going to die, when are they going to die? Because when they will die, we will be able to become the leaders of Israel. That sounds terrible, that's true, right? But our sages said, number one, they didn't say it openly. Number two, it was only an expose of the heart, which could have been true. I mean, our sages explained that they looked upon the future of the Jewish people. They were concerned about the future of the Jewish people. And since they were endowed with the greatest potential of knowledge, leadership, strength, everything, so they thought they might be even better than Moshe and Aaron, the actual leaders, when they die. They didn't plot to kill them or something. They just said, when are they going? They saw that they were too old. Maybe it's not the greatest for the Jewish people. You know, if you explain this in the proper way, this does not sound so ugly. It might even sound good in the eyes of people. No? I mean, don't we do this in America all the time? Somebody gets old, bye-bye. He immediately has to resign or whatever, or he's fired just because he is older. So what's the big deal? That's why they were killed. But what concerns us now is the question, when do you know what is good, what is right? Many times we think we do something that is right, it comes out not so right. You do something that is good, it comes out bad. So we are still in the question. So tonight's lecture is only a question, which is going to be even taken with more depth in the following minute. Especially that there is a biblical statement by one of the prophets which says, "Ki lo machshevotai machshevotechem." God says, "My thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways." You cannot understand what. So that means God knows that we cannot understand what He really means. So how can you ask me? How can you request from me to fulfill a mitzvah that I don't know how to be right and how to be good? And even when I am sure, I cannot be sure that my way was better than the other's way. Let's go to somebody prominent. Have you heard about Shaul HaMelech? Shaul, the first king of Israel. He was anointed with oil by the prophet Shemuel, the greatest prophet of the Jewish people. I'm talking about before King David. You know probably the story of Shaul. Shaul was chosen by the prophet because of his tremendous innocence, great wisdom, very tall and very strong, and also the most humble man. When Shemuel went to look for him, he was hiding among the sheep. And finally, he took Shaul, and he says, you are going to become the king of Israel. Why? Because they are the smartest, the greatest Torah scholar. At the same time, you are also endowed with the most blessed qualities of good heart, generosity of the heart, and everything else. Which means like it happened with Moshe. Why Moshe was chosen by God to be the leader of Israel? Because God found him the best human being in all the human beings on earth. So Shemuel also, when they found Shaul, the king, that's the best. And he became the king of Israel. He became the king of Israel. He was a very long period, the king of Israel. The only problem is when he got older, a few things happened in his life. He became jealous. David was a beautiful young man, very charismatic. He started to attract the people of Israel. They admired David, again because of his wonderful heart and his strength and everything. It's a long story. I'm not here to tell you the stories of the Bible. You could read them maybe some other time we can learn in depth some of the stories of the Bible. But here is one situation that happened in the life of Shaul, which was instrumental and the reason why he lost his kingdom. I mean his royalty. He was given an order to attack the nation of Amalek. Granted. With that order was that he should eradicate Amalek. He should exterminate the enemy. And not only exterminate the enemy, not to have any compassion. Of course, today you say that, immediately you are condemned. But the mind of God, we cannot know. So he said to him, do not have any compassion. And also when you will be a winner, of course, do not take and use the booties. You know, all the riches that you got from the enemies. Don't touch it. Everything is totally cherem. That was the order on Shaul. And Shemuel, the prophet, was behind him all the way. The war was very, very great. And, of course, the Jewish people won. There was a total eradication by the king himself of Amalek by the name of Agag. Agag, that's the great-grandfather of Haman. That's the grandson of Amalek. He was taken prisoner. And the poor guy looked very bad. The king of the very proud nation of Amalek was decimated, and now he is there in front of Shaul. Shaul is under the requirement to kill him, to execute him. Shaul had a great heart, very compassionate. The Jewish heart is very compassionate. He says, here is the guy, he's imprisoned and chained. Why should I kill him? No, maybe we don't have to kill him. He had mercy on him. At the same time, he gave an order to take a portion of all the fortune that came to their hands, and to use it for the purpose to feed the people who are hungry. And the prophet Shemuel came very angry, and he said to Shaul, Shaul, what have you done? You disobeyed the order of God. God told you not to have any compassion. God told you not to touch the booties. And you desecrated the order of God. First, here is what Shmuel did. Show me Agag, he says. Where is Agag, the prisoner? And he came to him. I have to tell you this, even though it's cruel. He took the axe and he split him in two. He killed him. Shmuel, the prophet Shemuel, the old Shemuel, the revered prophet. At the same time, he turned to Shaul and he said, God has condemned your royalty. He shall not be anymore the king of Israel. At the end of his life, in other words, he kept him as the king of Israel as long as he lived. But then, the next generation of kings of Israel didn't come anymore from the progeny of Shaul. I mean, even the son, he had several sons, they all died by the hands of the Philistines. Even the best friend of David was Jonathan, the son of Shaul, and he also died in the terrible war. But after he died, the kings of Israel were taken from the tribe of David, not from the tribe of Yehudah, not from the tribe of Shaul, which was the tribe of Benhaim. So he lost totally his kingdom, his royalty, because of a mistake that he made. And what kind of mistake? He had a good heart. By the way, when we look upon the history of the Jewish people, we understand finally the intention of God. Do you know that if Amalek was completely eradicated, we would have no troubles today, no more in the world. Anti-Semitism comes only from Amalek. And we keep suffering because of those moments of compassion. But at that time, how much can you condemn Shaul? He thought that what he is doing is, on the contrary, is going to be rewarded by God for taking the decision in his hands to be compassionate and also to give food to his people. And yet, as cruel as it sounds, we find that Shaul made the mistake of his life. Where is, again, the question that we have? The commandment of the Torah is, ve'asita hayashar ve'atov. You have to do what is right and what is good. Shaul meant to do what is right and what is good. What is right is to give the people something with which to sustain themselves, and what is right is, and what is good is to have compassion for a guy. I mean, even King David says, "Bin fol oyivcha al tismach." When your enemy falls, do not be happy. So he had compassion, so what? So when do we know what, especially that I told you before, I quoted from the book of Isaiah, where it says that God himself says, Ki lo mahshavotay mahshavotechem. Don't you expect me to think like the way you think? In that case, how do you ask me to do such a mitzvah, to do what is right and what is good, when I don't know what is really right or good? Perhaps you could tell me that one should do what is right in his eyes, or what is good in his heart. But then it proves itself many times a failed situation. Allow me to give you another example. King David. So now King David is the king, the best king of the Jewish people, the hero of Israel, the darling of the Jewish people forever and ever. Even the Mashiach himself, we call him the son of David. He also made a mistake in his life. While this might take some time, but I'll make it very short. King David, when he was a king, a king of Israel is not like a king of the nations. A king of Israel is a servant of the people. But you have to give him certain priorities. He's a king. Our sages said that a king must be rich, and he must have many kinds of pleasures. And the pleasures that are not forbidden, of course, not against the Torah. But the king, for example, a king was allowed to have 18 wives, when nobody else is allowed to have more. Forget about this now. But the king himself had. Why? Because the king must live in a palace, he must be very comfortable, he must be rich, he must be this, and then you have to make him all this. You have to give him all this. Why? Because it has nothing to do with him. It has to do with the glory of the Jewish people, of the nation. The nation must have a king who is respectable. How can you be respectable if you are if you are a nobody? You have to be something. So one day, King David devoted himself to God all the way. And one day he saw a beautiful woman. And that woman was Bathsheba. She was the wife of somebody else. And her husband's name was Uriah the Hittite, a half Jew. But she was extremely beautiful. All right. But King David is not having any bad intentions. Not yet. In the meantime, he had a dialogue with God in a philosophical way. God says, this is in accordance with the text brought in the Talmud Masechet Sanhedrin. There we find the following, that there was a dialogue between David and God. And David says to God, God, I have served you well. You know me, Chasid Ani. You know that I am totally devoted to you. How come am I not included in the chariot of the patriarchs? Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, every day we say, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. The God of Avraham. Why is it? The Kabbalah says that they are considered the chariot, which means they are the best. That's exactly the source of the privilege of the Jewish people. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. David felt that he is worthy of being included in the chariot of God. Understand what I am saying? He wanted, so to speak, he wanted the Jewish people to pray every day as follows. Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, Velokei David. He says, why not? I don't deserve it. What have I done that is less than the three patriarchs? So God says to him, David, take it easy with yourself. You have not reached the level of those three great ones. He says, in which way? So God says, because I tested them so much, and they did not fail the test. You know, Avraham Avinu, for example, the 10 big tests, including the Akedat Yitzchak, you know, the bounding of Isaac, which he carried in a formidable way. So God says to David, you cannot. So David says, God, please, test me. I want to be tested also. Give me a test and I will show you that I will pass it. He says, oh boy, don't let me test you. He said, I want you to test me. And God said, okay, I will test you. And I will even help you by telling you what kind of test. It's a test of a woman. And David says, that's all. No problem. I will pass the test. All right, fine. We'll find out. And the Bible tells me, according to the text of the Talmud, that David one day, for a long time, he stayed, he did not even approach anything that might be susceptible to bring him any temptation of sexuality. But one day, he was playing with his bow and arrows. So, he saw from far on the roof a small hut. It was like a bathtub. Inside, Bathsheba, the beautiful woman, was bathing. He couldn't see anything. From outside he couldn't see anything. But he was playing with his bow and arrow. And he sent one arrow, and God directed the arrow towards the hut. And with the power of the arrow, it destroyed the tub, and Bathsheba appeared. And he saw her and he fell in love. He didn't do anything yet. He saw her, he fell in love. By the way, in the Talmud in Masechet Yevamot on page 63, we find the Tosfot that tells us the secret why he fell in love with her. He fell in love with her because she was Bat Mazalo. She was destined to be his wife from the creation of the world. There is such a thing. Maybe we'll talk about this some other time. But in the meantime, he fell in love with her. All right. Nothing happened. There was an issue of a great campaign going on against the Philistines and against the nations of Moab. David, all his life he spent in war as a warrior. He spent in life in winning one war after another. One day he had to send the army to attack the Philistines and to have a very, very difficult campaign. And he sent one of the captains that he nominated was Uriah Hachiti, the husband of Bathsheba. He sent him to the front. Very dangerous. And the man died there. He lost his life. Now Bathsheba is free. But the rumor spreads that David did it on purpose, and he sent Uriah to be killed so that he can be free to take his wife. Our sages promise, we find in the Talmud in Masechet Baba Metziah, that Kol Omer David Chata eno ella to'eh. Anybody who thinks that King David sinned is making a big mistake. It's not true. Yet he was punished. He lost his son. Lo alenu. And not only that, the prophet Nathan came to him and he said, how dare you? What would you do, he said to him, if a person is very rich and he has plenty of things and he goes to the poor man who has only one lamb, and he goes and he kills the man and he takes the lamb? How would you consider this act? And King David said, this act is criminal. You have to kill the guy for doing such a thing. I mean, a rich guy, he has everything, and he goes to a poor guy who has nothing except one thing, and he takes the only thing that he has? That's terrible. So the prophet Nathan says, you are the one. You have all the women in the world for you, and you coveted a woman that is not yours, and you sent her husband to the death. I'm sure that King David says, I never had any bad intention. What can I do that he perished? But he is a captain, one of the captains of the army. But nevertheless, because the rumor spread, sometimes God is like this with the closest ones to him. It's enough that the rumor spread, even though you didn't do it. But the rumor spreads that you did it, you have to be punished. Don't ask me now why. We don't even have the time to discuss it. But in the meantime, here we have the situation of David. What he did was to appear good in the eyes of God, and here it is. He failed totally. And again we come back to the question of how can we fulfill the mitzvah of ve'asita yashar ve'atov. What is right and what is good? He doesn't know. Sometimes you do something right and good in your eyes, and it proves to be very wrong. That's another case. You know, by the way, I'll make it very short because I have to finish the lecture in about maybe 5 minutes, no more. But there is only one in the history of the Jewish people who decided to do one thing and it proved to be the best. And that is Moshe Rabbeinu. Moses. What do we read this week in Pirkei Avot? Moshe kibel Torah misinai umsarah li Hoshua. Moshe received the Torah at the mountain of Sinai, and he delivered it in the hands of Joshua. Now who was Joshua? Joshua was his servant. And the Torah says, Lo yamish mitoch ha'ohel. He never budged from the tent of Moshe, which means he was his student and everything. But Moshe had wonderful children. How can you think, is this right? Is this good? How can you do such a thing? The Torah that God gave you is in your hands. You wrote it with the guidance of God and everything. At the end of your life, instead of giving it to your children, and your children are not dummies, they were great people, they were great teachers and everything, and great leaders. So why didn't you deliver the Torah in their hands for the transmission of the Torah to the next generation? Rather, you chose Joshua. At the time, everybody would have condemned Moshe. But thank God that we have found out that after a while we realized that this was the best choice. So in the case of Moshe, ve'asita hayashar ve'hatov, you do what is right and what is good, proved to be perfect. And the reason is because, what is the reason? Why did he choose Joshua? Because Moshe is a man of justice and straight justice. Yes, my children are great, but there is one who is greater than them. A person who never allowed himself to be far away from me. He learned every word that I taught him, and he served me, and that's the proper choice. Nobody else in the world would do such a thing. Did you ever see somebody who wrote a book that gave it to other people rather than his own children? And especially the Torah. But later on we found out that the best leader of Israel was Joshua. He proved to be not only the greatest Torah scholar, as the good student of Moshe, but at the same time the greatest general of the Jewish people, Joshua. So that at least was accomplished. But again, it's not difficult to understand this, because Moshe is Moshe. Moshe is the student of God himself. He cannot make a mistake. But as far as we are concerned, how do we know what is right and what is good? Conclusion. How do we know what is right and what is good? The truth is that here is how. Before you do something, you have to clear your heart after you find out that there is absolutely no interest to you. If you realize that you have no interest in the matter, then you can be sure that what you decide is true and right. No, it doesn't connect. Look, listen. We spoke about the children of Aaron who died. Was there an interest or not? It's possible that they had a mind that is totally 100% innocent and pure. But the matter itself had a certain interest, to be the leaders of the Jewish people, right? If you follow the lecture, הבנת מאיר, הרי סוף סוף יש נגיעה. There is a small interest there. It is true that they were great enough to say that was not my intention. But was there an interest or not? There was an interest to be the next leaders. Immediately they are liable to make a mistake in that commandment. Because if you want to do this commandment right and good, the proper way without failing, you have to clear your heart and to find out that you have no interest. Let's go to King Solomon. Do you know what happened with King Solomon? That's the only issue I didn't bring yet. King Solomon, the Torah says, do not have too many women. Velo yarbelo nashim. Why? The Torah says, Velo yasur levavo. Because if you take too many women, they will tempt you to go other ways. So King Solomon said, what? I love God so much. Women will induce my heart when it comes to God. Nobody will succeed. And it took 1,000 women. We did discuss this in the past. He made the wrong judgment. He thought he's going to prove to God that despite the fact, why did he take 1,000 women, 1,000 princesses? He thought he's going to bring peace upon the earth and unite the whole world. Wouldn't you say it's a great intention? But God says, don't give me your ideas. My ideas are not yours. Do not take too many, because they will sway your heart. And that's what happened to Solomon. So you see, Solomon, you could always tell me that he had the purest intention. But was there an interest or not? The interest is women. Okay, maybe you will not agree with that. Okay, let's go to King David. King David, the purest of all intentions. And yet, there was an interest. The lady was very beautiful. Right? What else can I offer? Even more than that. When you see that there is an interest in something, suspect that your decision is not 100% pure. Of course, we have no choice in most of the times. You have to do what has to be done. You have to do right and good in accordance with what you think is right and good. But don't expect to be always successful if that issue had an interest that could be relating to you. But if you see that you have absolutely no interest in the matter, you could be sure that if you are a good man and a good person, to do the right thing. Right, what is right and what is good. So far we found only one person who would have done it, and that is Moshe Rabbeinu himself. All we can do is try to do the best we can. But to expect to be always successful, impossible. There's always an interest that is lurking or hiding for each one of us. I hope the lecture is not one of those that bring too much headaches to people with perhaps a little bit depth than usual or something like this. But it's a very important issue to discuss at least once in a lifetime. Be well, my friends, and God bless you.